Welcome, one and all, to Joe's Writers Club JWC Livestream. We're going to do another Nidhogg read today. This is Chapter 3 of Nidhogg Chronicles, Crusade of Shadows by Richard Andrew Olkus. Chapter 3, The Garden Fairy. Nidhogg grit her nubby teeth until they began to hurt, feeling as if she was near a breaking point. The Grey Controller delivered a scathing report about a garden fairy in southern England, which had been getting into trouble. Outside the program's occasional exposure, there were also sanctioned bright side events meant to gauge any change in the public eye regarding acceptance of non-humans by humanity at large. The narrative was explored by the collective, who wished for a gradual transition into a hybrid world, but would certainly take a faster route if one presented itself. Such a breakthrough would leap them ahead decades, if not centuries. Suffice it to say, the open and frequent biting of local children by this unruly garden fairy had to be dealt with, since it represented a purely negative optic for the program. Indrid stood at the instrument panel at Nidhogg's 4 o'clock, his face smiling with a sickly sweet humor boiling just beneath the surface. They went over images of terrible-looking bumps, welts, and sores, pocking the flesh of those local children who were victims of the garden fairy's territorial stinging. These all had a similar tone, lividity, a swollen size, obviously belonging to the same creature, although the medical authorities were not likely to know what creature it was. Nidhogg shook her head in disgust, wishing to zap or squish this fairy for being so indiscriminate. It was likely that she would have to lead missions into doctors' offices in order to cleanse the record of this unsanctioned biological interface. Nidhogg turned to Indrid, the MIB, with hostility in mind and body, her voice cruel and short, lost in an endless mounting frustration of the collective's demands. Indrid, when we get to this garden, it will be me that deals with this flower gnat. I am sick to death of cleaning up after the likes of her, and so are our underlords. An example must be made to discourage such conduct among her kind. Indrid's face did not harden or slacken, remaining a wooden mask of plastic mirth as he responded. If the Grey Controller agrees, then so do I. The collective will make themselves known. Otherwise, we should proceed. The garden fairy cannot be allowed to continue. Indrid and Nidhogg made their way to the ramp, meeting a group of small greys who warblingly gesticulated toward where they were headed. As they disembarked the saucer, Nidhogg wrung her hands together in anticipation of the punishment she would inflict on the fairy. Whatever got the point across, along with a little artistic license, should do the trick. Otherwise, it was all just work, work, work. Great gusts of moist air rolled over the many acres of flowers, bushes, and trees, the whole place smelling like Demeter's navel in a late spring, though unseasonably chillier. Various lights flitted above a churning sea of petals, each luminous color a different hue of astral fire. They were the fairies' souls, brighter than the flesh that held them, the buzzing of their wings lost in repeated gusts and gales. Several fairies flew toward Nidhogg with obviously hostile intentions, but they redirected as soon as they got wind of the hybrid, being instantly intimidated by her ruthless expression and menacing eyes. Indrid called out to them, his reverberating voice muffled by the coming and going of the wind. Greetings, daughters of Bel. We have come to reprimand one of your sisters. Nidhogg's slim-fingered hands became fists at her sides. Her own hissing voice came as a shout through the windy background. Pansy! What part of inconspicuous do you not understand? Come forth or be terminated outright. It makes no matter to me either way. A blue-lit fairy separated herself from the others, buzzing up to where Nidhogg threatened and struggled to maintain a fixed position in all that moving air. Nidhogg's face was a mask of ferocity as she went on berating. The collective is greatly displeased with your conduct. You want the humans to discover your garden and burn you down? You and your bubble-headed sisters would be under glass, on metal trays, getting cut up by stupid surface dwellers. Is that what you want for them? To be revealed to the world at large? If we have to extend great resources to correct your reckless nonsense, they will make you pay. Remember that they always get what they want. The garden fairy named Pansy circled and swayed in the wind, a mournful buzz projecting remorseful upset. Her astral plasma fluttered as guilt and defiance warred within. But the thought of the collective's judgment clarified any notion of further resistance. Pansy beamed images of submission to the psychic will of the collective, giving oaths that she would reform and obey. Nidhogg's rage fell back into a smoldering disappointment. She had wished to bring suffering to the fairies, and now could only turn to Indrid with her hopes dashed. The MIB went walking with the fairies, following them back to some such tree or log or cave in which they dwelt. She was glad to be rid of them. Nidhogg beheld their astral fire bouncing here and there, admiring its beauty with jealousy burning darkly within her heart. That was when the darkness leapt out to her keen senses, revealing a shrouded form moving through the distant trees. She walked away from the small grays, leaving her team behind to sort out the rest of this stop. There was something out there which needed to be dealt with, although not on record. Nidhogg walked for about 20 minutes into the thickening overgrowth, smelling on the surrounding foliage a noxious stink that turned her bowels to jelly. The silver robe she wore shone dully under the swaying canopy, losing any glint due to the unyielding overcast above. Nidhogg's tread passed over and into a great boneyard clearing, and a smell of rot was overpowering despite the stiff wind. On a hill there stood a 9-foot-tall hulk, covered in dark fur, the limbs huge, the face a grill of gruesome blooded teeth. Its head was wild, having large eyes and wind-driven patches of gory fur. Its claws were long as bayonets, to be seen even half plunged into a deer carcass. This furry hulk gripped the body tightly, crushing it until bones cracked, taking monstrous bites from what remained of its lopsided neck. The smell of innards danced with decay and the creature's overpowering musk, enough where Nidhogg had to fight back pangs of nausea. The voice of its telepathy found her just as its growling speech did. Do you want some flesh? I have plenty and can get more. Nidhogg shook her head, keeping an impassive face, as she replied to the forest hulk carefully. I can't eat that, but I do have a question. What is one like you doing so close to the border of human contact? Hasn't it been explained to you that despite their seeming cluelessness, humans do catch glimpses of you from time to time? This is not for the best, believe me. The collective will disapprove. The hulk bit down savagely and chewed, devouring raw flesh and bone as easy as bread and butter. Its telepathic voice was unmoved by any threat or consequence. I catch glimpses of them also. A female human runner comes through here now and then. The scent fascinates me. Her odor, feces, urine, sweat. I wish to touch her. I wish to see her closely. Nidhogg's heart quavered in her breast, her breath heaving as if she were the runner in the midst of a great exertion. If you do that, she will not like it. She will not value it. Instead, she will flee, feeling terror just like that deer did before you bore down on it. You do know that, don't you? The Hulk took another bite of the deer, tearing it apart, spilling the bowels and organs. As it hungrily fed, its voice continued to address Nidhogg's questions. Yes, I'm sure she would, but it doesn't stop me from wanting it. She couldn't stop me from approaching her. Her terror would be meaningless. Nidhogg shook her head. Not meaningless, pointless. But you ultimately would want her to want you. And that's something that won't happen. It can't happen. She is as instinctive as you are and would feel threatened. The way you can't help but want her, she would be unable to ever want you. It's just the way it is. We are what we are. The Hulk shook his huge head back and forth while snorting. We are what we make. We make what we are. Nidhogg frowned at the Hulk, listening to the same tired old rhetoric of the collective coming out of yet another mind. The fool didn't get it, and for that matter, neither did Nidhogg. After saying these things, after feeling the plight of this other freak of nature, why did she still hate James? While walking through the woods, she remembered walks they took together as children, recalling the way he treated her when they were alone for too long. She terrified him, always making the human boy panic. All she wanted to do was hold his hand, to go fishing with him, or to get one kind word from his smelly mouth, a kiss of tenderness to show that they weren't just friends. Such wishes died unfulfilled, becoming sources of immortal bitterness that lived on raggedly in Nidhogg's heart. What is your name? Nidhogg asked the creature as it slid the rest of the deer into its reeking mouth. The wet noodle sound of carnivorous chomping was the only response at first. Then it swallowed and burped, the noise of it horrid as a boggy car crash. I have been called Gobin. The crafty humans call me Chomper, but I hate that name. They track me, take my picture, but I stay away from them. There are others like me out in the woods. I stay away from them too. I do not always wish to be alone. Would you come and visit me? I feel as though I am unworthy to know your name. Otherwise, I would ask you for it. Nidhogg felt a sadness wash over her, feeling for this creature and its endless solitude out in the wild, hearing how it wished for companionship and knowing it would have none. She put a thin-fingered hand on her breastbone and spoke to it while looking at its bestial features. My name is Nidhogg. I will come and see you, but you must do something for me. The Hulk shifted stances as drool poured from its post-meal lip-smacking, a hopeful intonation found in its voice. Anything, Nidhogg, anything. You must promise to avoid the runner at all costs. If anything goes wrong, she will get you into trouble. We cannot have that. And you will come to harm. Even if I avenge your blood, they will still have shed it. And that will make me sad. Please, just stick to hunting deer. Hunting humans rarely ends well for our kind. Nidhogg felt her words sink into the creature's mind, sensing its upset at being vulnerable as well as undesirable to humans. The forest Hulk finished its meal and sniffed in Nidhogg's direction, then reluctantly melted back into the sylvan wilderness from whence it came. Nidhogg read the direction it moved as northeast, knowing that this course would take the beast deeper into solitude where it belonged. Nidhogg felt hate twist both her heart and mind, subjecting her self-worth to the comparisons of this forest Hulk, wondering what difference would be. Wondering if a human were to see them, would she pass as the lesser monster when the contrast was so inescapable? Somehow she doubted it, and that miserable uncertainty waited despair enough for all the world. So that was Nidhogg Chronicles Crusade of Shadows Chapter 4. The Garden Fairy by Richard Andrew Olkus. Please check it out on Amazon. Tom, my goodness, it's the ghost of Tom. What
Can you hear
me? Yes,
Uh-oh.
yes. What dimension have you transcended to that you take on the role of an apparition for us? This is very strange.
It is. It's I'm on my semi-crappy laptop, which I'm thankful it works. My computer is in its final stages of life here, my usual computer. So sorry I didn't get back to you quick enough, but hey, we're here.
Yeah, that's all right. Why don't we just go over a creative check-in real quick before we and we'll do some plugs, and then that'll be that, you know.
All righty. I did have a little piece to read, but we're good to have. We're good anyway.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't get a hold of you, and when you said, anyway, probably better to discuss it later.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so why don't you plug your book real quick?
All right. I have several. Come on, get in there. I have I'm moving everything out of my usual space to this upstairs. Next week it'll be better. Anyway, I have 2 short story collections on Amazon Kindle. Shadows, Dwellers in the Shadows, and the second one is It Still Out There? Some nice spooky stories. Got some very good reviews on Goodreads. And a new book that I have. I'm going to change the title because I realized I looked and there's 20 other books by the same title. Right now it's called So You Want to Be a Writer. And it's a little thing about getting started writing if you're having any doubts, any troubles, any wondering if whether you could be a writer. This is definitely something to reinforce any notions that you have that you could be a writer. Anybody could be a writer. And also I have on Amazon Vella, I have my serial novel of Thieves, Dragons, and O'Hara, it's called. I just put up episode 34 of 850 episodes, probably. So there's that. And so things are going really good. I'm wrapping up editing Blood on the Sand. I'm hoping to get that out on Kindle soon. So we're good.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Everything's going good with Athenaeum. I'm writing 2 other books besides. It's like a hurricane of creativity, man. So yeah, folks, make sure you head over to joeswritersclub.com, joeswriters.club. Check out our social media. Most importantly, head over to our YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe and share it to anyone who you think's likes these content, like the content we make. Like we do various shows on Tuesday, various shows on Monday. We have mostly poetry on Monday, but we do a bunch of stuff like some reads and book craft and all this other stuff. Anybody that's interested in getting in print, show them that stuff. They might like it, and it would help everybody out in the creative community. And thanks a lot for watching.